Alright, the tiny Tonitrus, a ranged hunter tool version of its big brother, that certainly sparks my interest. They aren't exactly identical to each other, but at least in the same ballpark, especially since it attacks enemies from below. Now, adding a Tesla coil to this Victorian world might seem a little ad hoc, but I would say it's ad shock. And whether old technology like this would be regarded as futuristic at this time, I'm not sure. But old or new, it's definitely current. However, it's also locked away until late game. Which does make sense since bolt is a type of lock. But I of course would want to know what it would be like to go through the game using the tiny Tonitrus as your only weapon. Fortunately, I don't even need save editor for this one, because the tiny Tonitrus is a toy meant for the Yarnamite children. So, after a quick trip to the local toy store, Tonitrus, I managed to acquire my very own tiny Tonitrus. Oh, that's such adorable little tiny Tonitrus. It's so small. Perhaps I will be able to make everything die from cuteness overload instead. Be that as it may, the tracking and even the hitbox itself is a little wonky, which I suppose is still theme appropriate since it literally makes you scream, "What?" And of course, taking on the many monstrosities in this game is already quite a burden to shoulder, but this is at least one way of lightening that load. And as a spark hunter, that is my profession, or better said, my shockupation. And thus, let us see if we can turn this bloody town into an electricity. But anyway, the moon is close, it will be a long hunt. Tonitrus will perhaps shorten that a tiny bit. And it goes without saying that it has power. And also a lot of range. But given that it uses 6 bullets, even by constantly making 5 blood bullets, you will eventually run out. Fortunately, you could potentially hit multiple targets at once with it, but despite all appearances, the attack itself is not a multi-hit. It will always hit a single target only a single time. And can it hit them through geometry? Well, it is a From Software game, but no, of course not. That only works to your disadvantage. Now, since we don't really need to pick up any specific things, tonight rushing through the first area would be fine, but we can of course also sell stuff in order to level up. So let's take our Bowl to the Beautiful and focus solely on raising our arcane stat, which it has excellent scaling with. Sparkane knowledge of the shock cult, to be specific. Oh, on a complete side note, something that has always been shocking to me is that people pretend that Eileen says hunter. But clearly she says hunter.
A hunter must hunt. A hunter must hunt.
Regardless, time to take on eldritch beings from another plane of existence. Although with this heavenly power, I feel like I could defeat the very devil himself.
For I beheld Satan, and he fell from heaven like lightning!
That was a big nothing.
Mwah. Well, at least when you do hit, the damage is really impressive. Although despite all appearances, the hitbox only moves along the floor. So you cannot hit the head with it. Also, you should make a habit of making blood bullets every single time. Otherwise, you can simply run out when the boss ends up with 1 HP and a nightmare. Then again, as long as you have over 30% of your HP remaining, you can still make another set of blood bullets, and that will allow you to go the distance, or not. Fuckalicious. Well, I suppose that events like that will simply keep one on their toes. Fortunately, the next fight was anything but a toenail biter, because I could actually strike right through geometry this time. And in addition to that, when I played the music box, Gascoigne sung a whole different tune, a full octave higher in fact, allowing me to bolt him down before he could even blow a gasket, in turn preventing me from blowing a fuse. And thus, after a dastardly double doggo discharge, I made my way to Old Yharnam, where I tested out some NPC durability and my not exactly intentional evasion skills. Something powerful like that wasn't planned, but similar to a power plant. Of course, perhaps some intentional strategy would be in order, to demonstrate to these beasts that I'm in charge. And given that the blood-starved beast likes to slurp blood, I in turn could tell her to go and suck it. Regardless, I should also not get overconfident, because remember that it uses 6 bullets every time you use it. Meaning that if you don't make blood bullets first, you can suddenly realize that you might not have enough charges left. After all, it doesn't matter how much health you have, because 5 blood bullets is 1 short. So I almost ran out of juice there in the end. But fortunately for us, there is a way to increase the amount of bullets that you can carry using specific runes. And yeah, I understand that murdering an innocent sweetheart like the church dweller like this truly puts the Vault in revolting. So let's hope that the Yharnam police won't arrest me for assault with battery. But of course, even if they went after me, I could easily escape from them across the rooftops by doing some parkour. Regardless, in a roundabout way, Eileen actually serves as the Yharnam police, but she is after Henrik. And so am I, since his outfit is the most theme-appropriate one, given that it has the highest bolt resistance in the entire game. Perhaps because he's an old dried-out broom that conducts barely any electricity anymore. And therefore, I lean on the damage that our friendly NPC here can inflict on him instead. Because all I can do is some friendly fire. With electricity, ironically. And I don't remember crows being immune to electricity. Air. Air or fire destroyed with bolt? I guess?
That wasn't necessary of you.
Sorry. Well, other than the issue that this outfit reeks of the natural musk of old men, bolt damage from enemies is actually the rarest damage type in the entire game. Paarl, Abhorrent Beast, Silver Beast, Orphan, the Tonitrus Hunter, and the Lightning Casting Fisherman. That is all. Yeah, shocking, I know. But what we are really after is the rune tool to make use of our previously acquired runes, which will require us to defeat the witches. Which to me always felt a little out of place actually, among the beasts and the alien-like entities. Perhaps these were just some kids in Halloween costumes going out for trick-or-treating. In which case, in my opinion, these children should have been grounded. Because the only thing preventing me from inflicting a double dose of devastating damage, making blood bullets slows my attacks down even further of course. You know, I always ask which witch is which witch, which I did once again because this attack won't make them bloody in order to tell the difference. But this time I also asked what witch requires which amount of what. Yes indeed, pronunciation aside, we are turning the Victorian Age into the Vault Age. Of course, just like in the real world, in that time, society was ruled over by the church. And as a famous philosopher once said, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you inflict electricities. A well-known quote by Voltaire. Actually, Vicar Amelia in the alpha version of the game was the one who dropped an alternate version of the tiny Tonitrus, inspired by Catholicism like the Church of Yharnam clearly is, and that version would inflict bolt damage all over the world at once in Judgment. It went by the alternative name of Noah's Spark. Well, that version certainly would have been helpful, because it may not be that apparent yet, but despite leveling Arcane exclusively, our damage is somewhat starting to drop off, at least comparatively. I mean, Amelia of course has high bolt resistance, and fortunately the next few bosses do not. Then again, Amelia will often vault her hands in prayer. And since she is also a transformer of sorts, going from human to beast rather than from machine to vehicle, but there's more than meets the eye to the one I'm holding as well. So despite her bolt resistance, my Tesla still made her recoil in anguish from fulgurations. But the point I'm trying to make is that, spoiler alert, our damage is going to drop off to the point that even with 99 arcane, you can only afford to miss a few shots before you will get defeated by a power outage. Because remember, blood bullets mean nothing when you have 0 regular bullets left. Be that as it may, now the dark night has fallen, we're going to take a quick trip back into the Sparkham Asylum in order to take the Canehurst hearse to Canehurst, a place far off the grid, where we follow the circuit across the freezing snow. After all, we are a coiled heart killer, and the many blood echoes that we acquire here will empower us even further. But before we continue onwards towards the shadows, I first wanted to go to Amygdala. But of course, along the way we encountered 2 hunters, the second of which holds the big Tonitrus. However, fighting the one with the rifle spear was a bit of a rife fail.
Ow, 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 ow. When's it gonna be my turn? Ow.
Also, when it comes to the big Tonitrus, is it just me or is the tiny Tonitrus actually bigger than the big Tonitrus? Yeah, Tonitrus the description of these items no longer. False fucking advertising. Well, something that is also very deceptive is the actual animation of this attack. It is literally a grounded attack, which in turn can literally prevent you from getting ahead. Even to the point that I couldn't make heads or tails out of it. Who would have thought that trying to apply electrodes straight to the amygdala resulted in shock therapy on my end instead? In fact, I had to resort to some very precise spacing and timing. And the worst thing is, many of those types of situations were still up ahead. And thus, after such an abhorrent fight, I actually went to the main game version of the abhorrent beast, which you would think would be even more abhorrent. But in the end, it was not exactly a bold battle, but definitely an electric fight. But other than a wonky hitbox, another way things get rather shady is when the enemy can simply dodge your attacks. And trying to prevent that by attacking from up close
This time it's maximum voltage at minimum range.
can easily backfire. However, you can reduce the amount of charges you need by making tactical use of double hits. And with that type of strategy, it won't take that long before you can tell the shadows to stick it where the sun don't shine. Ocean man, take me by the hand, lead me to the land that you understand. Well, he can only point me to the ocean because he doesn't have his sea legs anymore. But as effective as even a +0 big Tonitrus was back in the every weapon unupgraded run, let me show you that size doesn't matter and that it's about the motion of the ocean. Although in this game there was no mechanic yet that water decreases lightning resistance. But despite that, the damage is amazing. But even so, there are still several problems. There are so many spiders around that an electric swatter wouldn't be enough. You would need an electric SWAT team instead. And all of them will mess with your lock-on, and not using lock-on requires you to lock in and have tremendous aiming skills, which as my bathroom floor can attest to, I do not possess. Or most bizarre of all, she can still somehow dodge your attack. The actual fucking fuck! I guess we're really getting into the meat and potatoes of the run at this point. And speaking of which, some people actually claim that ROM reminds them of a potato. Okay, fair enough. But if we're going to compare things to vegetables or fruit, ROM is potato, I am pear. Alright, time for Yara Ghul, and this is of course where you would normally first acquire the tiny Tonitrus. And you know what, just for the heck of it, let's go and collect a second one. And by doing so, what the fuck? I ran into a laser moving away from me. Wow, I really am as fast as lightning. Now of course, you cannot equip 2 tiny Tonitruses. Tonitri? Huh. But of course you could combine the big and the small one in order to become a true spark hunter, and they definitely do combine very well. one melee weapon that won't run out of attacks, other than the terrible durability, practically requiring a Tonitrus fund to keep repairing it, but that aside, complemented with a ranged option to make up for its short reach and limited moveset. Well, then again, in any Bloodborne playthrough that you do, you will be making use of a dual shock. Of course, this is specifically a PS5 controller, or... wait. No, it's a PS4 controller? Or PS5? PS4? What the fuck? Okay, that's definitely a dual shock then. But something that was also double as shocking is that the fight against the boss with the lowest bolt resistance in the game actually didn't even go all that smoothly. First of all, the attack is just too slow, especially because of the necessity for blood bullets, that keeping it stun locked doesn't work that well. And with the 6 vials wasted on the Bell Ladies before the fight even began, and the ease of which damage is taken when the boss can, do stuff, if I said that this wasn't a rather close call near the end, I would be a bold-faced liar. Of course, then it was time to pull the plug on Paarl, the Dark Beast, a creature of the Nitrous. Which would probably sound nearly impossible to do, but surprisingly, for whatever reason, his bolt resistance is nowhere near as high as you would expect. It's only 300. For comparison, Orphan has 228 bolt resistance. So having a high enough arcane stat will do the electric. If it somehow doesn't inexplicably still manage to miss. Yeah. Regardless, something that you should definitely not miss out on is this excellent video about the lore surrounding the Dark Beasts and the Sparkhunters. Which might surprise you since Paarl is barely even alluded to in any written text. But once you take the story's meta-narrative into account, you are guaranteed to see the Dark Beast in a new light. But back to this video, the tiny Tonitrus will turn brain suckers into brain sockets, as they are incredibly weak to bolt. There is one in the back there as well, but I think we can safely ignore him.
Get back here, Shocker! Shocker! You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
And that one's Snuggle, and that one's Foo-Foo, and that one's Cabbagehead, and that one's Other Cabbagehead, and that one's Vegeta Jr. Vegeta Jr., no!
Alright, time to turn a Brightus from Arcane Squid into a Shocktopus. However, similar to Amygdala before, you can only hit her head if she lowers it for you. So even with this weapon, it still requires similar tactics to how you would normally fight her. At least how I would normally fight her. Which may or may not be that normal after all. However, her bolt resistance is incredibly low. So near the end, it's better to not push your luck and simply go for body shots instead. Then again, luck favors the bolt. And we're very lucky indeed that this weapon has so much range. Because next up is Mikolash. A guy reduced to complete insanity, so I guess this is a case of nut versus bolt. Hunter's tool versus, another fucking tool if you ask me. But rather than chasing him around the circuit, I could actually hit him safely from a distance. Well, safe, there are marionettes around, so in this context a better synonym for safe would be Volt. But of course, safety first wasn't Mikolash's mantra either, given that he practically has a lightning rod on his head, while acting anything but grounded. But of course, if anything conducts electricity well, it would be a wet nurse. Although, because of her high health pool, it still felt like a drop in the bucket. However, if you bait her to attack first, you will get a nice amount of bonus instability damage, and on top of that, it is actually kind of necessary to do, because believe it or not, she can actually still dodge your attacks. But when she goes down, and the baby dies as well, because fuck it, there are enough people on the planet anyway, you will feel a surge of power rising from within you as you realize that, technically, the game has been beat already. But of course, we want to include every single boss fight. And although there is still one left in the main game, not counting the 2 actual final fights, and there's a good reason to leave him until later, meaning that now it's time to go back to the past. Although I would have loved to have done that by playing on the Shock Arena of Time instead. But be that as it may, now not only the difficulty goes up, but our damage is dropping off as well due to the large health pools of these bosses, not to mention our own tiny health pool. Meaning that making blood bullets at the wrong time will instantly cause us to short circuit. Not to mention that when Ludwig is in his first phase, attack opportunities are plenty, although I inexplicably kept missing attacks for no apparent reason. Now I didn't livestream this run, but I did have my microphone on while recording. So these were in fact my actual reactions. Oh, I actually missed? That missed? No, how am I missing? There's no way that missed! No! How did that miss? What the fuck? There's no way! No! No! There's just no way. How the fuck do these attacks miss? Fuck? That missed? What the hell? Come on! That missed? Shut the fuck up! And remember that you simply cannot miss many shots because there's a real danger of running out altogether. And other than the amount of attacks and the amount of attack opportunities, when he gets into his second phase, he is just wired differently. And you will notice exactly how much longer this animation is compared to your standard melee attack. And just like an electrically induced spasm, that messes with your muscle memory. After all, when you're used to sneaking in quick attacks here and there, it's pretty tough to simply flip a switch and approach it in a different way. At the very least, I do feel carried by the massive orchestral soundtrack of this fight, allowing me to picture myself as the conductor. Quick, do it! Yes! Wow! Final attack possible. Given that there was no blood vessels left. Ah, technically. Oh wait, yeah, that was literally the final attack possible because even with blood bullets I couldn't do it. Okay, wow. Well, you're lucky Ludwig had, because now I can't use an attack on you. Dick.
Have you seen the thread of light?
Yeah, multiple times, and it missed you multiple times, and I can't even do it now on you. That would be so fitting. That would be so fitting. There's your thread of light. Regardless, time to lock the stable door after the horse has bolted, and press continue. By the way, I hope I don't speak too loudly during the video compared to that quote-unquote live commentary, because I wrote the entire script in bold letters, so there you go. Well, at least the next fight allowed me to recharge my batteries, because this was an easy encounter, despite their large health pool. After all, I have the reach advantage, and by focusing on the melee ones, rather than on the casters, I managed to get fairly frequent double hits. Because despite the ease of the fight, it is still the case that I finished with only a single shot remaining. In fact, now we get to the point where my failure, because of quite literal power outage, became a serious issue. Well, then again, Maria is a very lovely lady. I wouldn't mind fusing with her box. Huh? Oh, sorry for the interruption, that was my dog Sparky. So, what I was about to say? Oh yeah, I wouldn't mind fusing with her box of tricks and turn them into electrics. Because Maria has the ability to dodge faster than lightning. And also at random, and even practically iframe your attacks. Making it really difficult to Tonitrus this weapon. You know, I think I need a little break first, so let's have some sparkling water and some chocolate. Hopefully that will recharge my willpower a tiny bit. After all, the thing is that you can lure her into an attack animation first, but then you will lose your reach advantage. In fact, that advantage will be completely one-sided in her favor instead. And on top of that, I also could miss simply because of a weird lock-on issue I don't understand. Well, I guess that the explanation with the least amount of assumptions tends to be the right one. So on the basis of Shockham's Razor, my conclusion is that the developers are dicks. No! We have barely enough time. Yes! That's better. Yeah, that really demonstrated that you cannot spell Astral Clock without ass and cock. Damn it, was that even worth it? Well, I believe that after the atrocities in the fishing Macbeth, the fishing Hamlet, also a fair question to ask would be, was Bergen worth it? Leaving whoever was lucky or maybe unlucky enough to survive in a state of permanent shell shock. With the exception of the snail ladies, ironically, since those are the only enemies in the game who are completely immune to bolt damage. For whatever reason. So yes, Paarl is not immune, but these snail ladies are. Try to figure that one out. Now of course we are in fact here on a search for truth. And we did find the source behind it all. Or better said, the cause. And it didn't initially appear like a complex fight. Because Orphan ironically does not dodge any attacks, at least not intentionally, and he simply has many attack opportunities to begin with. However, he has so much health that even now with 99 arcane, we can only afford to miss 2 shots before we run out. Now you can get a little leeway through instability damage, but it's rare that you'll get that, and very risky to make use of. And in a fight this long, and with a hitbox this wonky, not missing a few shots is like tricky dicky. Now, Lawrence is much easier to deal with, since you can actually bait his regular hand slam for an easy attack opportunity with additional bonus damage. Regardless, there is still a real risk of draining your entire battery before his flame of ambition is extinguished. So, in order to make these two shed their mortal coils by using my own mortal coil, I think I need some electrical power of a different kind to empower me. Alright, but it's not over yet. Remember that we left one more boss behind in the main game. And although it might seem like high voltage versus low Garius is actually quite a power imbalance, however, once he switches phases, he gains electrical shielding, a surge protector that can trip my circuit breaker at any random time. You can, occasionally, still get a hit in. But there is no rhyme or reason behind this. But that meant that this fight was turned into a literal RNG fuckfest while taking constant chip damage from his Gates of Babylon attack. I did manage to get real close, but sometimes you need to know when to hold them and when to vault them. And right now, it's vaulting time. This was turning into a Manus one-shot type situation where even if you do win, it's an unsatisfying victory of just pure dumb luck. I already realized that in the previous video where I went for the game with the Black Sky Eye. However, there I happened to get that weird parry glitch, which removed his shield. And I wasn't that lucky this time. Perhaps luck does not favor the bolt, but it's in the eye of the beholder instead. Nah, not really, because actually the same parry glitch happened again. And with his shield removed, the RNG was removed. The same glitch 2 videos in a row. Apparently, lightning does strike twice. But it makes sense this time. What makes less sense though is that Gurman, one of the 2 final bosses remaining, pretty much just kept lore walking into my attacks, making this encounter as easy as a walk in the spark. Sure, he can occasionally dodge later on, and I don't want to sound offensive, but Gurman was kinda lame. And so, all in all, what can we conclude about the tiny Tonitrus? Well, we basically learned 2 things about it. One is that it's actually not that tiny, and 2, that it actually is a type of Tonitrus. So, I hope that this video has been incredibly educational and brought some bright blue sparkling light to a possibly overlooked hunter tool. And hey, using a Tesla which is also a coil is still better than driving a Tesla which is not so cool. There you have it. Perfect way to conclude the tonight for us all.